All right, man, peace. So, brothers, now we're up to what I would deem to be probably the most pivotal aspect of this whole R. Kelly storyline. That being the dynamic of his relationship between himself and the long deceased songstress by the name of Aaliyah, who has risen to cult-like status in the aftermath of her death, because that is the nature of the beast that we're dealing with. When I say the beast, I'm talking about fandom. This is why the witch covens, known as recording labels, know that they can kill off any one of these assets and still make money off of them for years to come, just in residuals, because once they're able to build up the cult of personality around many of these notable figures like Aaliyah or Michael Jackson or Whitney Houston or whatever or whoever, from there you can count on their fan base to keep the money rolling in. But just to get back to the point, as I've been saying over the course of this series thus far, the role that R. Kelly plays in the recording industry is that of Orpheus, the super talented songmaker, the arranger, the composer, the phenomenal singer who's able to enrapture everyone who hears him, who's able to create songs that everyone is in awe of, to the point where he becomes their writer, their Svengali behind the scenes. Therefore, Aaliyah is Eurydice, and the fable, or the quote-unquote fable of Orpheus and Eurydice, is certainly a story that brothers should investigate, because it sheds a lot of light on what the nature is of what they call the Eleusinian mysteries, or the Orphic mysteries, which are pivotal in many of the narratives that are played out on an everyday basis on a worldwide scale. They want to reinvigorate the energy around the mother goddess, the father god, and their son. And when you understand that, then you can grasp with a far greater degree of understanding why they choose certain people to castigate. But just to get to the overall point, R. Kelly and Aaliyah never quote-unquote fell in love per se. They were arranged to come together for a period of time. R. Kelly once again played Orpheus. Aaliyah played Eurydice. She was handed over to R. Kelly by her uncle, Barry Hankerson, who played proverbial Zeus or what have you. Therefore, R. Kelly was also Hades, and Aaliyah played Persephone or Proserpina. I'm going to delve into that much further, because over the course of her career, the film roles and the music that Aaliyah was chosen to participate in, because she did not choose, she was chosen to participate in those films and in the musical imagery that depicted beyond a shadow of a doubt that her role was to play proverbial Persephone as a forerunner to the reincarnated version of Aaliyah, aka Persephone, that being Beyonce Knowles. All Aaliyah was a seat warmer for Beyonce. R. Kelly's job was to fulfill the ritual of Orpheus and Eurydice with Aaliyah. So anyway, they're going to talk about it and I'm going to chime in. And I'm going to expound on my perspective as we go along in this video.
And then Rob met Aaliyah through his manager.
Rob Kelly never really met Aaliyah through his manager. It was arranged that Barry Hankerson was going to pass Aaliyah over to R. Kelly. Aaliyah was an MK asset, aka a monarch child. She was raised up in the industry through satanic ritual abuse to understand what her role was going to be and what she was going to have to do to please whoever her handler was at the moment. When she was passed to R. Kelly, she understood immediately how she was going to have to gratify him. R. Kelly, once again, is also an MK asset, as we're going to see as we move along in this feature here. But once again, Barry Hankerson already knew that he was going to pass his niece, Aaliyah, who was just an asset, over to R. Kelly. Remember that Aaliyah got her start on Star Search, which is basically a farm for MK assets. People like Christina Aguilera, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. What's this other girl's name? The girl who was with Ben Simmons. Tinashe, Tatiana Ali, Martin Lawrence, Jenny Jones, who used to host that talk show on television back in the 90s, which alongside of Ricky Lake was used as a programming tool to get so-called blacks to accept homosexuality and lesbianism. If you remember back in the 90s, if you were growing up in the 90s, you came home from school and Jenny Jones and Ricky Lake would be on television, and every day their topics were always about getting so-called black people to accept homosexuality and lesbianism. And both Ricky Lake and Jenny Jones are Caucasian Jews. That was their job, was to get the so-called black male and female, especially during the hip-hop era, to accept homosexuality and lesbianism as a normalcy. And they did an excellent job of it. But just to get back to the point, Star Search was used as a farm to ferry all of their Monarch children, their MK assets through, to introduce them to the public for the first time. Britney Spears, all of them made their debut on Star Search, Usher as well. From there, they got signed to major record labels, and they were taken to the next step. Meaning what? They were introduced to their programmer or handler at their record label. And normally they were so accustomed to being molested as children by their parents or by a quote-unquote family friend, aka a programmer, someone of that nature, that when they were passed over to the head at the record label, who continued the molestation, it was nothing to them.
Which Aaliyah was Barry Hankerson's niece.
Right now, I'm producing a very talented young lady, Aaliyah. She's real street. She just be chilling.
R.Kelly said that Aaliyah's real street, should just be chilling. There was nothing street about Aaliyah at all. That entire image was prepped for her. She had no understanding of the street image. If you ever watch any of her performances on Star Search, she was dressed like one of those children beauty pageant contestants, what they call a $1 million baby, which is a term that's used for young girls who are entered into those beauty pageants when they're children. Most of those young girls are put through molestation rituals as well. Remember JonBenet Ramsey? She's what you call a $1 million baby. Once again, that's a term for a Monarch child or an MK asset when it's very young and is put through doll programming or catwalk programming. It's when they initiate the customization for the young child as being a sex slave. They want to accustom them to being a sex slave or being promiscuous or satisfying grown men. That normally starts at that age. Just to get back to the point, that's how Aaliyah was dressed in her Star Search performance, like a child beauty pageant contestant. So there was nothing street about her. So R. Kelly is lying from the jump when he speaks about what her character is or what her personality is or was.
Hey, Aaliyah.
Yeah.
That first verse is funky, right? What I want you to do is, I want you to try to get into it just a little bit more for me.
Okay.
Just get into it a little more, make it a little more street, alright?
Alright.
Sound good, though, baby.
What was Aaliyah like as a person?
Very shy kid, very tomboyish, glasses, braces, no swag.
No swag. In other words, she wasn't street. She didn't understand what the street lingo was. She didn't know how to dress like somebody who was from the quote-unquote hood. She was sheltered in the programming for the most part. When I say she was sheltered, not just that she was kept away from people, but all she knew was that Luciferian upbringing.
She's truly an angelic individual. She was truly a beautiful young lady.
That's one of the modes with which the society likes to cast Aaliyah. That's how they want her to be remembered, as someone who was quote-unquote angelic. But that is not the case. Once again, her role in the industry was to play Persephone, aka the Iron Maiden or the Queen of the Damned.
Aaliyah just needed a look. That's all. She just needed a little something to spice it up. She was still very young. She was 12 years old. We taught her street thing. We gave her her vibe. She went from wearing fitted clothes to...
Look, brothers, no disrespect, but I'm not one of these tranny experts on the internet. I do have to say this, though. When you look at many of the younger photos of Aaliyah, her chin is very prominent. Her jawline is very prominent. And even in her adulthood, she had no hips whatsoever. None whatsoever. So would it shock me if she was someone who was chosen to be transgendered from infancy? No, it would not shock me at all. I'm not saying that that's what she was. Once again, I'm not one of these tranny experts. Is there a transgender agenda in the entertainment industry? There's no doubt about that, because once again, their God, the GOAT God, is a God that embodies both sexual identities, both the male and the female. They like to bring them together, what they call gender bending. So would it surprise me if Aaliyah is one of those subjects? No, it would not. Am I saying that necessarily she was? I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that when I look at some of her photos when she was 13 and 14, her chin is very prominent. She looks like a little boy who they grew her hair long.
To the baggy jeans with the half shirts baseball caps. We taught her how to be an artist in the sense of having a stage presence. We would sneak Aaliyah out of the hotel room and take her all over the place.
In other words, you taught her how to be a street rat. That's what you taught her.
It was fun. We used to take her to my dad's house and we dance and sing in the living room.
Yeah, your dad should have been disciplining you, because you the same broad who talked about how you were in the studio watching R. Kelly get your friend back shots. How you were on the tour bus watching R. Kelly plow out Aaliyah. And now you're talking about how you were at your dad's house. Your dad should have been disciplining you, but the brother probably did not know what the hell was going on.
Aaliyah became very close with Tia and myself.
Once again, very prominent chin structure there. Strong ass jaw.
We were all very close. She and myself had a very close-knit relationship and friendship.
Now, brothers, you see this right here? This is one of the signs of what they call a programmed multiple. Always watch out for Mickey Mouse imagery. That's part of what they call Disney programming for MK mind control assets or monarch children. They're programmed to view Mickey Mouse as an image in their mind that they always want to use as a reference for guiding them into another world. You'll find that many celebrities like to adorn themselves in their videos with some type of Disney paraphernalia or article of clothing. Always watch for that. But Aaliyah, once again, no doubt in my mind, Disney programmed monarch child.
Those were the good old days. But those are the things that also make you cry.
Aaliyah's first album is made by R.Kelly. And it's called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. And the title song is about a young girl who's trying to get an older guy to go all the way with her.
Right, well, that was the ritual that she was participating in at the time. Once again, Aaliyah was linked with R. Kelly to play out that ritual. Not just for R. Kelly to assist her in ascending to superstardom. Their role together was to play out Orpheus and Eurydice. The Orphic mysteries are a touchstone of the Greco-Roman aspect or understanding of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system. Once again, Orpheus is Cush. He basically is the great storyteller, the great teacher, the great scientist, the great magician, so on and so forth, the great musician. They use music like magic to enrapture the people.
I mean, it's frightening and it's disgusting.
No, sir. What's frightening and disgusting is that your hypocritical ass is sitting here on this documentary accusing R. Kelly of doing things. When I say accusing R. Kelly, I'm talking about sexual harassment or sexual abuse that you yourself were accused of by your hairstylist, to the level where you actually had to acknowledge that your conduct was reprehensible. It's amazing to me how many hypocrites were included on this documentary. But it shows you the lack of shame, number one, that so many people in that industry have, and how hypocritical they are. Number two, a code red has been declared on R. Kelly, and there's nothing that he can do. And they will spew you right out of the entertainment industry when and if they're done with you.
Age ain't nothing but a number is a thing in the black community I've heard since I was a little boy.
Age is nothing but a number is a notion that is pushed in every so-called community. As a matter of fact, right now there are older women who like to date younger men, and they call them cougars. And nobody finds anything wrong with a 50-year-old woman dating a 25-year-old man if that's what they both choose to do. So many of the females that were included in this docuseries, I'm confused as to why they're there. The only reason that R. Kelly, you would even consider someone who will be worthy of investigation, is because of the allegation that he is sexually assaulting young girls, 12, 13, 15 years old. If you're 22 years old and you choose to live with R. Kelly and you agree to call him daddy and you have to ask him to use the bathroom, that's a you problem, not a him problem. He's telling you these are the conditions that you're going to have to abide by to live in my house. You have to walk around with a wine cork up your ass, butt naked, with just red pumps on, call me daddy. If you want to take a piss, you got to ask me permission. If you're dumb enough to live under those conditions, you get what you deserve. I mean, hey, it is what it is.
when a hot young girl walks by and a guy in a barbershop says that.
Age Ain't Nothing But a Number is definitely a perfect song for hiding in plain sight.
Yes, he's trying to hide from your goofy Elvis hairstyle looking ass. Bro, like she about to sing Heartbreak Hotel.
Right.
Robert brought beauty out of her voice to where she became the star that she was. He said he wanted her to have the best of everything. He said, man, I want to make her the biggest star in the world, man. Look at her, she's so beautiful to him. And
R. Kelly had to know that their relationship was not going to last long. But once again, that was part of the ritual. And the ritual of Orpheus and Eurydice. On the day of their marriage, they were told by the quote-unquote God who presided over their marriage, I believe that the entity's name was Hymen, that their marriage was going to be cursed and it was not going to last long. And that eventually Eurydice would die and Orpheus would lose his mind because of it. And that basically is what happened to R. Kelly, except instead of almost losing his mind, he almost lost his career for a half second because there were some tenuous moments in the mid to late 90s in the aftermath of that quote-unquote relationship, which once again was just a ritual to introduce Aaliyah into the music industry for what her role was going to be. That being the Iron Maiden, a.k.a. Persephone or Corey.
And she always had him laughing. I'm just telling you, we go get ice cream, and I'm in the back and I'm walking behind them all the time. And they're just so silly, man. They were silly.
Yeah, they were programmed to be together.
It wasn't until I was maybe a teenager myself that it really bothered me just how much older he was than her at the time.
That's interesting. So it wasn't until you were a teenager yourself that it really bothered you. What that really was an attempt at a humble brag by a female who clearly is about 40 years old or looks 40 years old to make sure that people know that she was a teenager back in the 90s. When in reality, what it seems like you're trying to imply is that you were younger than a teenager when Aaliyah and R. Kelly were together, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Because you have to be at least 40 years old. If you're not 40 years old, you have a problem. But at the end of the day, the real reason why you have a problem is because R. Kelly was not with you. And once again, this is another quote-unquote so-called black female that happens to be a mega feminist, and she's not even really a so-called black woman. Her father is a so-called Caucasian man. They have allowed this female to sneak into many of the literary components of the entertainment industry so that she can be an influencer and hopefully, be at the vanguard of societal change and causing a paradigm shift in how females view men. At this point, that is what the modern day or modernized feminist movement is about. Making sure that they can create a cement wall between men and women.
At the time, I remember thinking, that's not right. I don't have no grown man friends.
You don't have any friends.
Right.
I mean, look at you. You're 40 years old with blue hair. It's very obvious that you still wish that you were 22 years old.
Right. Like, I just can't wrap my brain around, having...
Well, it's very difficult to wrap something so small around anything.
Having a grown-up, period, as a friend. A babysitter, a friend of the family, but never being left alone in the care of a male, aside from my father.
Well, I would agree with that, but you would need to have fatherly supervision to make sure that those things never happened. Once again, Aaliyah never had supervision because she was purposefully passed to R. Kelly by her uncle, Barry Hankerson. And her mother, Diane Harden, as well as her father, knew what was going to happen once she was passed to R. Kelly. That was part of the arrangement. And as incredulous as certain people might be in understanding this, there are thousands and thousands of parents all over America who willfully try to pass their children onto celebrities, willing to, or at least tacitly willing to allow that celebrity to have intercourse with their child, whether it be a girl or a boy, in hopes that they will empower that child to become a celebrity, and thereafter the parents can get the money. That's what most of these boy bands are about. Remember B2K? What was the cat's name? Raz B, who says that he was the recipient of molestation from this dude Chris Stokes, which was obvious. I mean, when B2K first came out, they looked like they were all trying to compete for the prom queen. I mean, them niggas look like they slicked down their baby hairs with a gallon of olive oil, man. I was like, God damn. Side their head is greasy as shit.
Her parents trusted. They trusted me. They trusted us.
Yeah, her parents trusted you and trusted everyone to make sure that R. Kelly did what he needed to do to get what he wanted, so that in exchange for him getting what he wanted, he would make her a star. Diane Harden came up in the music industry. I believe she was a background singer for Gladys Knight, who, by the way, was the wife of Barry Hankerson, who was Aaliyah's uncle. So that's where all the connections come from. And you know what's interesting? I remember right after Aaliyah passed away, when her plane went down, Gladys Knight, or both Gladys Knight and Mary J. Blige, made very cryptic comments about Aaliyah's death, as if they were trying to imply or understood that what was being reported about the circumstances surrounding her death were not actually what occurred. They seemed to be trying to imply that there was a spiritual element to why Aaliyah was no longer on the earth. Once again, these artists, they have to participate in the Bacchanalian mystery school system. They know that people have to be sacrificed. They know that you have to do certain things, or the energies that you need to maintain in the record industry or in the entertainment world are not going to subsist with you. They're not going to stay for very long.
I thought they were getting closer. I was beginning to suspect things, but didn't want to. So I asked Rob, I said, Rob, man, what's going on, man? You ain't messing with... Hell no, man, I'm not messing with Aaliyah.
Stop lying. He said, I don't see nothing wrong.
It was under talks for a long time about having them come up to the show. It was kind of like they don't want you to talk about the age.
The show that this person is talking about was a show called Video Soul that was on BET in the 1990s. This is the show that R. Kelly and Aaliyah appeared on together right before her album came out.
They don't want you to talk about any of this stuff. But as a journalist, you kind of have to decide.
You're not no damn journalist. All you are is a busybody. Journalist. Give me a break.
Are you going to take this risk while this platform is in front of you and ask the questions that the people want to know?
Okay, let's clear something up, because you know I've been getting a rundown on the street. Everybody seems to think that y'all are either girlfriend or boyfriend or cousins or friends. let's just get the record straight.
Let me say something very quickly before Aaliyah or R. Kelly respond to the question. Notice how they're dressed. They're dressed the same. That's part of the programming. Once again, they're both under Disney programming. R. Kelly was Aaliyah's handler.
We're just very close. He's my best friend. Now, who found her in the whole wide world?
As we can see yet again, the image of Mickey Mouse on the hat of Aaliyah.
They are asked direct questions. Are you guys dating? And they would not give direct answers. They would both give these vague answers that left it all up in the air. So,
yeah, but I mean, what really does that mean? It was very obvious that Aaliyah was doing something with R. Kelly. There was no need to try to push her to acknowledge it or admit it. At the end of the day, she was 15 years old. It should be understood that 99 times out of 100, if you take a young person and you put them under the care of someone who's not their immediate family member, anything can happen. Anything can happen, period. But if you put a young lady or young girl under the auspices of a stranger, just because he's super talented, he's going to take advantage, or he can potentially take advantage of that arrangement.
So they knew this wasn't right.
And for the record, you are.
Well, they knew that it was going to be taboo. But at the end of the day, this was arranged.
You are how old? That's a secret. Women doesn't disclose her age.
Keeping it under wraps.
Once again, both R. Kelly and Aaliyah wearing the matching Mickey Mouse outfits for Disney programming.
That's right.
Seeing them dressed alike was really kind of like dangling candy in front of a baby. Like, this is promotion. This is a media machine. We're going to work this to our benefit.
No, not quite. The reason why R. Kelly and Aaliyah were dressed alike, Big Les, or whatever the hell your name is, is because that was R. Kelly's way to show control. That was his way to show her that they were two halves of the same whole. That is the nature of the dynamic in their relationship, because once again, they were meant to be together for that very short time period.
And we're going to toy with you, we're going to play with you, and we're not going to give you any direct answers, and we're going to kind of leave you wondering, well, are they a couple? We were out on the road with Aaliyah. On a tour bus, there really aren't any confined spaces. When you get on the bus, there are bunks. And so these bunks have little curtains you can pull at night if you don't want anybody to see you sleeping. So it just so happened we were all laying in our bunks. And curtains are open, everybody's communicating, laughing. We used to play different pranks on each other. And I think it was intended to prank time.
It was intended to prank time. You mean really, you were laying in your bunk trying to figure out where Aaliyah and Robert Kelly had snuck off to? That's really what happened with your nosy ass.
When the door flew open on the bus, Robert was having sex with Aaliyah.
So Robert was having sex with Aaliyah, and you saw that because the quote-unquote door flew open. Did the door fly open, or did you fly the door open? And were you upset that it wasn't you? Brothers, look, once again, and I'm not trying to be crass at all, okay? I'm really not. But a lot of the reason why they're able to find woman upon woman to participate in these docuseries is because they know, like I tell you brothers all the time, that the woman is moved by two emotions in general, that being boredom and jealousy, okay? All we see from this person, Jovante Cunningham, is her reciting all the times that she watched R. Kelly have sex with somebody else. But she never decided to say it within her mind, you know what, this is wrong, let me leave. It's amazing the clarity of mind that she was able to attain once she realized that she was never going to become a star in the industry. Now all of a sudden she's looking back and she's saying to herself, oh wow, what R. Kelly was doing was so heinous. You participated in it because you assisted him in finding the girls that he was having sex with. You were acting as an intermediary, as a procurer.
When the door flew open on the bus.
What did you see?
Things that an adult should not be doing with a child. Robert was having sex with Aaliyah.
Right, but once again, according to your testimony, you had seen him have sex with young females before. So did you come to the realization that he should not have been doing that when you saw him having sex with Aaliyah? Why did it take you so long to come to that realization? Maybe because you were young and trying to live the fast life yourself. Okay, so now brothers, this is going to be the epilogue to the R. Kelly and Aaliyah Match Made in Hell video part 1. And I just want to display for brothers and hopefully convey to them that much of what we've been told about Aaliyah Houghton in the aftermath of her demise, that being the consistent attempt at programming the masses to believe that she was some sort of pristine princess, so on and so forth, could not be further from the truth. If she was indeed a princess, she was a princess of Luciferianism, because that's what she was raised up in, almost from her birth. And that certainly was her role in the industry as well. As I've stated in many of the videos that I've done on this subject, Aaliyah was proverbial Persephone. For those of you brothers who don't know who Persephone is, or Proserpina, she was also known as Cori, or the Iron Maiden. Another one of her pseudonyms was the quote-unquote Queen of the Damned. That is why they had Aaliyah play that role in the film of the same name, because that is what she represented. Her whole life pretty much was laid out for her. R. Kelly played proverbial Hades, or Orpheus. Their marriage or their union was never meant to last. It was a ritual that they had to go through to introduce Aaliyah to the masses in a way in which they could make her a sympathetic figure from the jump. And in doing so, yes, she had to lay down with R. Kelly, but that was part of the program. That was part of the ritual. And as we can see here, this is Aaliyah's mother. I believe her name is Diana Houghton. Diana Houghton got her start being a background singer for Gladys Knight, who herself is another witch and Saturnian in the entertainment industry. Gladys Knight is, yes. As well as Barry Hankerson, who's a high-level wizard. He was the person who took Aaliyah under his wing first. And in my view, there's very little doubt in my mind that she was subjected to certain rituals. And to be very honest with you, brothers, I doubt if R.Kelly was the person who took Aaliyah's virginity. I'll leave it at that. Just please keep in mind that Barry Hankerson was acting as her Svengali. He was acting as her manager before he handed her over to R.Kelly. Once again, I doubt if R.Kelly is the person who took Aaliyah's virginity. Now, brothers, this right here is not Aaliyah. This is her mother, Diana Houghton. Almost eerie how much of a spitting image Aaliyah was of her mother. Once again, this person, Diana Houghton, was a background singer for Gladys Knight. Once again, Gladys Knight, as all top-level entertainers are and were, is a Luciferian. I believe that Diana Houghton knew that she was never going to be a superstar in the entertainment industry, so she decided that she was going to raise her children up through the programming, particularly Aaliyah, who ended up becoming an asset, or what they call a quote-unquote $1,000,000 baby. But I'll be covering that in a moment. I have little doubt that Diana Houghton gave her daughter over to the industry to be put through the ritual system. So, brothers, I decided to throw this photo into the montage. This, of course, is Gladys Knight. And as we can see here, she has on the costume, the black for Saturn, as well as the leopard print for Ciara, to show what? She's a programmed sex kitten. She's a maenad. And Gladys Knight, back in her day, just like all of the top-level R&B singers today, she got around. She got around. Those chicks back then, Diana Ross, Gladys Knight, they were getting piped down by all the top athletes and entertainers, just like these chicks are today. Nothing different. And you know what's so funny? I remember in the aftermath of Aaliyah's demise, Gladys Knight, as well as Mary J. Blige, making statements that seemed to imply that they understood that Aaliyah's death was not what the media was reporting, that it was something that had to occur to appease many of the aspects of what they were subjected to. Once again, once they're in the industry, they're in it according to blood oath. They must give the rest of their life over to Pan. That's just how it goes down. They cannot speak about it. That's why you see them taking photos with their hands over their mouth or their index finger up over their mouth, because they cannot tell any of the secrets of the craft. But once again, pay very close attention to how Gladys Knight is dressed. And I'm sure that certain dudes will say to themselves, well, my girl liked to dress in leopard print. Did that mean that she's under the programming? No, dude. I'm speaking about the entertainment industry. Okay? Once again, I'm speaking about the entertainment industry. I'm not speaking about quote-unquote regular people. Okay, so now this is a photo, once again, of Aaliyah as a child. And as I mentioned in the video, no disrespect, but it looks like a young boy here. I'm not quite sure if as she got older, they had an operation performed on her to take away some of the prominence in her jawline or her chin. But right here, her jawline is much bigger than the jawline that she had when she became an adult. So I have to wonder if maybe they had an operation or surgery performed on her to take away some of the masculine aspect of her jawline so that, you know, they could convince people that this was a female. Because I believe that this is a transsexual. No disrespect. Just my opinion. No disrespect. As we can see her parents here dressed in the all black for Saturn. Now this is Aaliyah and her brother. I believe her brother's name is Rashad. And I want you brothers out there to pay very close attention to some of the photos that I'm going to show subsequent to this photo, because it's going to shine some light on the culture of the family and how they were raised. We see Aaliyah adorned in, you know, some attire that would seem to convey to us that she was in some type of pageant or contest to see who was the best singer or entertainer. Maybe it was one of her appearances on Star Search. Once again, the Star Search program is a curriculum that was created to help introduce many of their monarch assets, their top singers and dancers and entertainers for the future, to the masses. Martin Lawrence, Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Usher, all got their starts through the Star Search program. And once they were introduced to the masses through that program, after that they were ferried over to certain music executives and producers to blow them up, per se, or to expose them to the world and make them celebrities. People who could be used as quote-unquote godlike figures or idols for the next 10 to 15 years and lead the youth. That's the point of building up these monarch assets. You want them to lead the youth to Luciferianism. And it's also quite possible that Aaliyah here was in a beauty pageant or a beauty contest of some sort. Many times you have young females who happen to be raised up in the programming who are put into beauty pageants or made to be beauty contestants. Once again, they're known as $1 million babies, right? Like JonBenet Ramsey, that was a quote-unquote $1 million baby. And when Clint Eastwood made that film starring Hilary Swank, the reason why he named that film the title that he did is because it's very clear that Clint Eastwood is familiar with the underbelly of Hollywood and how they raise up many of these assets. And I'm sure that he's taken advantage of it himself. Now, brothers, this is Rashad Houghton today. You see my point now? About how it was very clear how they were raised and through what system they were raised up in. Look at how he's making the double-horned hand sign. One hand going down, one hand going up. As above, so below. His god is Pan. He was raised to worship Pan, aka Saturn, aka Osiris, or what have you. The god of death, the god of pederasty, so on and so forth. So he's very well acquainted with the procedures of the industry. Now, brothers, for those of you who remember, back in the early to mid-90s, there were quite a few young songstresses who made their first appearance on the, on the field or on the scene in the entertainment industry at relatively the same time. That being Aaliyah, Brandy, and Monica. They all pretty much came out at the same time. And there's such a thing called twin programming or twinning programming. Do I believe that Aaliyah and Brandy were twinned, meaning put through the same procedures? I have little doubt. Of course, I don't know that for a fact, but oftentimes when you see two people of the same genre come out at around the same time, they were twinned. Also remember that Brandy did the video with Monica called The Boy Is Mine. And basically they represented two aspects of a woman who was trying to fight over a man. Now, literally, they were two different women, but they were twinned even in the video. They came to the door together at the same time to greet Mekhi Phifer, I believe it was. But all three of those females came out at around the same time. So are all three of them under the programming? I'm sure that Aaliyah and Brandy are. Not quite sure about Monica, but it would not surprise me with her either. Now, brothers, I'm not trying to digress, but this is another photo of Brandy showing that she has multiple personality disorder, or at least that's what this photo is trying to convey. This photo was part of a series of photos called Alter Ego that were taken by a relatively famous photographer who happens to be black by the name of Derek Blanks. And it was very clear to me as I sifted through many of those photos that Derek Blanks is an MK handler. He has an idea of how to manipulate the various alters of many of these celebrities. And he was trying to convey that in those series of photos. But as we can see here, Brandy has on the white, or at least one Brandy has on white, the other has on black. And the Brandy in white wants to kill the Brandy in black, meaning the bad aspect of Brandy. This is a concept that I'll be covering in greater depth when I do the review of the movie Us. Because that film was about more than just doppelgangers per se. The doppelganger understanding was meant to be a surface level understanding for what that film was about on a multitude of levels, but we'll get to that later. Point being is this: is Brandy under the programming? Absolutely, as was Aaliyah. Now, brothers, this will be the last photo that I use covering Brandy. I just want to provide some context for some of the previous photos, especially the one with Aaliyah and her brother. They're raised up in the programming. Do you see the hand sign that Ray J is using here? There's also a reason why Ray J is given so many reality shows, or was at one point, and why there was such a push made for him to be successful as a singer, even though he clearly could not sing. Is because he's in the programming. He's in the craft per se. Also remember that when they took their asset Whitney Houston from Bobby Brown, who did they give her to? They gave her over to Ray J. And Ray J's job was to make sure that the operation to have done to Whitney Houston what was done to her that weekend, to make sure that everything came to fruition, came to fulfillment. And he did his job. As we can see by his hands, he's making the sign of the pyramid there. And this photo is also meant to convey that even though Brandy might be the bigger star in the celebrity world or the entertainment world, it's Ray J who's calling the shots. Ray J may have many of her triggers. The reason why I say that is because Brandy is standing behind Ray J. Brothers, always keep in mind that the way that they compose these photos is very detail oriented. It's very meticulous. Nothing is by happenstance, or very little is by happenstance. Now, brothers, this photo here is in the early portion of Aaliyah's career. And pay very close attention to how both she and R.Kelly are dressed and the lighting. It's very obvious that they want the concentration of the photo to be on Aaliyah. We know that R.Kelly's there, but he's a background figure. They want you to understand that he has her keys. He has the keys to her triggers. He's partially in the shadow, but he is the one who is in control, and they're both wearing black and white for duality. This is also a very interesting photo. Once again, meant to convey what? That Aaliyah is in the craft and she could not tell the secrets if she dares to even try to tell the secrets. She will meet her demise very swiftly. And hell, even if you don't tell the secrets, if we have to go according to a certain storyline and it's time for you to go, then it's time for you to go. They all know what they signed up for or what they've been signed up for. They all know very, very well. Their job is to go out on stage and entertain the masses. In return, they get fame and promised fortune, not necessarily fortune, but certainly fame. After a while, the fame becomes too much. The pressures of the rituals become too much. Basically, they're all pansexual sex slaves. That's why they end up being drug addicts. They need the drugs just to keep themselves moderately sane. But whenever you see these photos where there's a hand over their mouth or their index finger over their mouth, that's meant to convey to you that they are privy to the secrets of the hermetic philosophies of the craft, and they cannot tell. They can't tell you what has happened to them, or they're going to be destroyed. So, brothers, this is a relatively famous poster / photo of Aaliyah. It was taken by a photographer who also is very famous by the name of David LaChapelle. He's the same photographer who took that photo of Tupac in the bathtub where he was basically naked. He also is an MK handler photographer. Many of these top photographers are MK handlers. If you ever go through many of the photo shoots of these celebrities, basically the job of the photographer is to make sure that what is conveyed through the photos is what the allegiances or the alliances of this asset is or are. That being to the sun god, the mother goddess, and their son. That's what this society revolves around, believe it or not. I know that certain people might think that I'm repetitive with this, but the reason why I'm so repetitive with this is because I want to accentuate to brothers how this society moves, what the energies are behind this current setup. And as we can see here, Aaliyah is in the leopard print. She is a maenad. She's out in the woods somewhere, or the forest, or the jungle per se. She's a maenad for the Bacchus, aka she's a sex slave. Here's another photo with a very similar theme. Brothers, the Maenads, who were the female worshippers of Bacchus, they would wear the leopard print or the fawn print, meaning the dotted coat of a young deer. Remember that another term for the Bacchus was Cernunnos, that being the stag god. But they would also wear the fox skin. It was known as a Bassaris. B as in boy, Assaris. And we see here that Aaliyah is wearing some type of fur, but the bottom half is leopard print. Once again, she is a Maenad. The Maenads were the ancient version of the beta programmed sex slaves of today. Okay, Maenad spelled M as in Michael, A-E, N as in Nancy, A, D as in David, S. Now here's another photo with Aaliyah wearing the animal print. Many of these sex kittens, they also wear the zebra print. Any type of animal print amongst the celebrities where there's a concerted attempt to make sure that the animal print is accentuated, that's a sign of split personality, aka some level of psychological programming where alters are installed. And if we pay very close attention, even Aaliyah's hairstyle seems to be a method to convey to those in the know that she is of split personality. A streak of her hair goes right down the middle of her face to show what? That she is of a split personality. Also the zebra print. R. Kelly wore the zebra print in the I Believe I Can Fly video. That song, I Believe I Can Fly, is a disassociative song. Very similar to many of the songs that Disney makes. Disney is a company that is heavily involved and working with many of these intelligence organizations to push and promote mind control programming. Now, brothers, this photo right here is an example of what I call hiding in plain sight. And this is what I mean when I stated at the beginning of this video that there's been a concerted attempt by the recording industry and her fan base to try to propagate this false image of Aaliyah as being some pristine person, someone who was so above and beyond and who was perfect in how she conducted herself, and there was nothing insidious about her. Well, as we can see right here, once again, this is why they chose her to play the role of the Queen of the Damned, meaning the goddess of the dead, the goddess of hell, Persephone, because she was a believer in Luciferianism, a stone cold believer. She really did not have an option because she was raised up in it. But look at her left hand. Let me do a close-up. You see that, brothers? She's making sure that she's throwing up the horn sign with her left hand, even though it's down, and it's very difficult to see unless you're paying attention. And as we know, she's dressed in the all black for Saturn, aka for Pan. She's a witch. Here's another photo, as we can see, once again, dressed in the all black. Look at her right hand and how she's pointing at whoever it is who's taking the photo. You see that, brothers? Manu Cornuto hand sign. Aaliyah was a Luciferian, possibly a Satanist as well. Who knows? But there's a difference between a Satanist and a Luciferian. A Luciferian basically venerates the pagan gods and goddesses. A Satanist is just an outright worshiper of the concept of Satan and him being an adversary of the Most High. So she could have been both. She could have very well been both. But she was certainly a Luciferian. She venerated Pan. Now, brothers, in this photo right here, I'm not quite sure if it can be any clearer that Aaliyah was a witch. Look at how she's posing. Look at how she's dressed, and look at the background. As I've stated in other videos, they will often use a blood red background to denote that is how devoted they are to the industry that they're in, the industry of the craftsmen or the artisans. The god of the artisans is Ptah, aka Ptah Men, the creator god, the god with the perpetually erect phallus. The god is also Khnum, who's also known as the creator god. He is the goat god. He's known as Pan. Okay? So Aaliyah was she was down with it like everybody else in that industry who achieved any level of fame. Now, brothers, I'm sure that many of you recognize this photo right here as the cover photo of her relatively or considered classic pop R&B album of the mid-90s, One in a Million, or late 90s, One in a Million. And the reason why I decided to post this photo is because it's relatively clear to me that the name of the album and the reason for this photo are meant to show a multitude of things, not just that Aaliyah is a 1 in a million as an artist, but as I've stated before, she is $1 million baby, meaning she's someone who's raised in the programming and she's worth her weight in gold because the industry knows how much money she's going to make for the industry. All of these MK Ultra kids are raised to make millions and millions of dollars. And then on top of that, in this photo, she's posing at the train station. There's a slogan that's used for many MK Ultra victims. It's called riding the freedom train. And when you get thrown off of the freedom train, that means that you get put to death. That's a slogan in the MK Ultra world. It's known as riding the freedom train. And once again, when you get thrown off the train, that means that it's time for you to be put to death. You go through your self-destruct programming or something of that sort, or they just kill you because you're no longer of any use. So that is what I believe this photo is meant to convey. Also, of course, she has on the all black with the red shirt. So once again, she's showing you that she's a witch. Okay, so now, brothers, let's pay very close attention to this photo right here. In this photo, Aaliyah, or whoever it is who dressed her, is going to tell us a lot based on what we should already understand. That being that one of the major components of the MK Ultra program is something called Disney programming. Once again, Walt Disney was a high-level Luciferian and Satanist. And he made a series of agreements with various components or factions in Hollywood, as well as in the intelligence community, to allow his studios to be used as a center for mind control, not only with children, but also agreeing to make films that would convey many Luciferian principles and ideologies. One of them being through characters like quote-unquote Mickey Mouse, who is really just a personification of the god Apollo, the sun god. I'll be going over that more in depth in other videos. But all of the top assets in the entertainment industry must be put through Mickey Mouse programming or Disney programming. And I'm going to show that in a minute. And there's a reason why in the docuseries, both R.Kelly and Aaliyah came out dressed the same in the Mickey Mouse attire or the Disney attire, because they're both under the programming. The difference is that R.Kelly was her handler, at least for that moment. But let's look at Aaliyah's right hand here. As you can see, once again, she's throwing up the quote-unquote Manu Cornuto hand sign. But Aaliyah, she knew what she had to go through from the start. In order for her to become a celebrity, she had to be put through this ritual of Hades and Persephone with R.Kelly, with the understanding from the start, or Orpheus and Eurydice, whichever term you prefer. Pretty much the same entities, just a different version of the story. Point being is that she already knew that her marriage to him was not going to last very long. So now here's a photo of R.Kelly and Aaliyah, both wearing the Mickey Mouse hat to show what? To show their allegiance to the concept of quote-unquote Mickey Mouse, who is, by extension, Apollo, and also the Baphomet. But once again, that's something that I have to cover in another video. One of the pseudonyms of the god Apollo was the mouse, or the mouse god. Why is that? Because the mouse was associated with destruction through pestilence. But once again, that's another video for another time. Now here's another photograph of Aaliyah and R.Kelly. R.Kelly looking off to the sky. I guess maybe he's thinking that he believes he can fly. I don't know. But let's pay very close attention to Aaliyah. Once again, look at her hands. Both of her index fingers pointing down to signify what? That she is the goddess of the dead. She is Persephone. Okay? I'm sure that certain brothers might say that what I'm saying is far-fetched, or maybe they just don't quite understand what's being conveyed here. But she already knew that is what her character archetype was going to be in the recording industry. And as she stayed alive, they would have changed her image over to a quote-unquote bad girl image. Aaliyah was taken off of the Hollywood stage before they had the chance to try to contort her image into the quote-unquote bad girl image. But all of these artists have to have an alter ego, all of them. And you can make the case that in the We Need a Resolution video, that was going to be the introduction to her quote-unquote bad girl alter, or her bad girl archetype. But that's for another video. That will be coming on part 2. But no, they only got a real chance to push the white aspect, or the good aspect of her persona. But once again, she knew who she was. She knew that she was Persephone. Now this is Aaliyah here. Once again, big chin Aaliyah. I guess before she grew into her chin. But once again, this looks a hell of a lot like a boy with long hair. Before the surgery or before the hormones took effect. Who knows? Once again, just speculation on my part. It's just my perspective on it. But I do believe that there was something done to this person to turn them into a female. Just my perspective on it. Here's a photo, and in the background there's a sign that says Fly Aaliyah. Now we know that the term fly is a colloquialism. It's a quote-unquote slang for someone who's dope, someone who looks good, someone who has style, swag, or what have you. But I also believe that that term is meant to denote a certain aspect of her persona that can be utilized to create a disassociation That's why many of the assets are likened unto butterflies or bluebirds. Once again, the R. Kelly song, I believe I can fly. I can disassociate. I can go from the real world to Oz or Neverland whenever I want. You understand? And look at R. Kelly. R. Kelly, people don't understand. He's as much a victim as any of the females that he was with. There's no doubt in my mind about that. There was a lot done, very unfortunately, a lot done to this young man. And not just by his sister. Because he's totally turned out. He looks like a flaming homosexual here. Man has no pants on, got his boxers out. And he's wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt. He's under the programming. And he's a sex slave just like Aaliyah was. So, brothers, I'm just going to end the video by providing some context to many of the statements that I made pertaining to the quote-unquote Disney programming. Most of the top-level entertainers are put through Disney programming, especially the ones who were raised up from childhood to be in the entertainment industry. As we can see here, Beyonce with the blonde hair for Hippocrates, wearing the Mickey Mouse hat. Here's the singer Ciara, who not only is she under the programming, but so is her quote-unquote husband, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a Monarch athlete. That's another video for another day. They were linked up together. But here's Ciara going through her princess programming, once again wearing the Mickey Mouse ears. When you see the celebrities with the Mickey Mouse ears, what that's meant to show you is that they are the recipients of messages. Because the Mickey Mouse ears are also likened unto satellite dishes, so on and so forth. So they're saying that they're the recipient of messages from their handlers. Here's Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson with the Mickey Mouse ears on. But once again, I have to expound on this concept in another video that's just devoted to Disney. Because this is something that that definitely would require a certain level of detail. But anyway, brothers, peace.